Two, one. Good afternoon, or good evening, rather. This is Rob Bell, and you're watching Getting the Record Straight. Please, when you see this, take time to subscribe, share it, like it, and most importantly, right now, stay safe. Continue to do this distancing thing. I know it's been hard on everybody, but hang in there. As I said, this is Getting the Record Straight. This is the Truth to Power segment. And to those of you who have been watching some of the programs recently, you might know that I didn't do one last week. Some things fell through in terms of folks that I thought would be with me. It didn't happen. I thought about doing something just on my own. And I don't know, I've been dealing with a couple of health issues too. I can't seem to get my hand around the fact that I'm getting old. So it is what it is, but I'm really blessed and pleased to have with me today a really good brother I haven't talked to or seen really in years.
Yeah.
We were just reminiscing a little bit, and that is Professor Ray Winbush, also AKA Takari Bioko. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Ray's a scholar, an activist. He's an expert on the impact of racism and white supremacy on the global African community. He's currently the research professor and director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University. And that's where I actually met him years ago, probably 15 or so years ago, down at Morgan. Brother Winbush is a graduate of Oakwood College and the University of Chicago. He's appeared on Oprah. Some of the books that he's written include The Warrior Method, a program for rearing healthy Black boys. Another book is Should America Pay? Slavery and the Raging Debate on Reparations. Belinda's Petition, a concise history of reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. And his most recent effort is the Osiris Papers, reflections on the life and writings of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. And so welcome, Brother Winbush. As I was saying, it's been quite some time since I was sitting in your office and we were discussing reparations and that kind of thing. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Rob.
Thanks for being. You know what, I haven't done this the last two interviews I've done. So before I go any further, and my mind is like a sieve, people who want to get your book, maybe see some of your videos and lectures and that kind of thing, where would they go for that?
Oh my God. Well, all the books are on Amazon. My last book on Dr. Welsing is available through Black Classics Press, which is also on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, probably start at Amazon. I always try to encourage people to buy from a Black publisher. And my last book is with a Black publisher. Start with Amazon, plug in my name, and you'll see the books.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of getting in touch with me, I got a bunch of followers on Facebook. Just look up Ray Winbush. On Twitter, my handle is R.Winbush.
Okay.
So, and then you can find on YouTube and all over the net, I'm not trying to trip on that, but you can find me easy. And I actually answer my phone in Morgan State where I teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even during this crisis, this COVID crisis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of books, the first one that I mentioned was particularly interesting to me, although I haven't read it, but because some of the work that I do is in Philadelphia public schools.
Yeah.
And with elementary school kids, actually. And I could do I don't even want to start, but that's why the title really caught my eye. So tell us what that's about. What's the premise? What's the theme, if you will, the Warrior Method, a program for rearing healthy Black boys, and what's the relevance for today?
Well, Rob, back in the the mid 90s, I got tired of being called an endangered species as a black male. And I concluded, I was teaching at Fisk at that time. I concluded that an so-called endangered species doesn't wake up one morning and say, I'm endangered. I don't care if it's a lion, a tiger, or a bear. And so I said, if a species is endangering them, who is endangering them, or what is endangering them? And I concluded it was the system of racism, white supremacy. I looked at a lot of books, and at that time, it was right around the time of the Million Man March. I looked at a lot of books on black males, and frankly, they were unsatisfactory. It was almost as if young black boys were chocolate covered white boys, and that you had to do the same with them, but they were troubled, problematic. And so what I said, look, let me look at rites of passages programs all over the world and see what other Africans are doing. And so I made a trip to Ghana and found out about this society called Poro Society, P-O-R-O. And it's one of the most ancient, it's at least 1,000 years old. And it's what takes a boy from being a boy to being a man. And I did a lot of interviews with my Ghanaian brothers and sisters. And what I did, I just took the warrior method and extended it over the lifespan rather than the 6 or 7 months that they do in West Africa. And this is not just in Ghana, it's throughout West Africa. In fact, there's a one for girls to women called Sandy Society.
Oh, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Now, the warrior method, is that what Poro means, or?
No, I called it that.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that, the term Jegna is an African term, an Aramaic term that you find in Ethiopia. And it means a person who is a warrior, but also has great knowledge about their community and is willing to die for their community and to protect their community. And I said, this is what black men ought to be doing. Okay. They need to be trained to do that. And so what the book has done, and I've been just pleased with his reception. I published that book I published that book 18 years ago, and it keeps selling, and nonfiction books don't do that. In fact, a couple of years ago, I revised it to the new edition. HarperCollins asked me to and I added a major chapter about the presidency of Barack Obama and concluded that he was also a victim of racism, white supremacy. So it's been used widely. There hasn't been a month that passed since I published that book that I haven't gotten email from literally all over the world about the book. It's taken me all over the world, as far away as Australia, to talk about it. So I'm just pleased and humbled by his reception.
So you said you've done an update on it that revolved around
right here.
Okay.
That's it right there.
Yeah, that's nice.
And
I gotta get that.
And see, what it is, Rob, is that Jewish boys are taught to be men through the so-called bar mitzvah. I've heard young boys, because I work with them a lot, I've heard young boys say, I'm a man when I can buy a Glock. And I'm not exaggerating this either. Or I'm a man if I have a baby by a girl. And I think in our society, we don't know when black boys become black men. And so the book goes step by step in how you form a warrior circle surrounding that child, even when the mother is carrying that child with support and raising them in a healthy way from, the time they're born all the way up to their men.
What are, I guess, the 2 or 3 most important concepts or elements of this process, if you will?
Well,
how long is it? No, not how long is the book, but if I could term it as a process, how long a process are we talking about?
13 years.
Oh, 13
years. from the time they're 15 to about 18 years. I'm sorry, 5 to about 18 years. And then I do have an adult section about men and so forth. But if I were to say the most important thing, it is very important that parents of Black boys, even single, divorced, whatever, that they surround that child from early age about teaching them that they are African. They are Africans in America, you know, or they are American Africans, not African Americans, but Africans in America or American Africans, and that they get a heavy dose. I mean, most Black folk in this country, what we have in common is that 85% of us came out of the West Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, whatever. I mean, most of us did not come from the East Coast of Africa. So it's a heavy dose of immersing them. That's one thing. The second thing I tell is that children have to be taught to read about their history, Black history, African history, at a very young age. I mean, we teach our kids about Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Bears and, you know, all of that mess. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. But if that's all you're giving your child, you are pouring into them a heavy dose of racism, white supremacist history. And then even with regards to American history, I mean, you know, I always ask my audiences, I say, I want you to finish this little ditty. And I'll say, in 1492, Columbus, and then everybody can say, sailed the ocean blue. And most of my audience, they haven't, said that for 30 or 40 years, but it's embedded in their brain. It's like, and so if we can download racist white history, why can't we download non-racist African history so that that child grows up? And there's actual empirical studies that show that if children and adults get heavy doses and belong to organizations that are advocating for African people, they live longer. I mean, they actually live longer. They have longer life expectancies. So being Black, if you want to put it that way, is good for your health and good for your mental health.
Less stress, maybe.
That's right.
What do you think? There's so much that we could talk about in terms of our current political landscape.
Oh my.
Yeah. What's going on. So let me just throw it out there. What are your thoughts? I mean, we just had the Democratic National Convention. Not even worth speaking on the current. I don't even know. Is the Republican National Convention over? Or
no, it started last night.
Oh, really? Okay. Whatever.
That's what you want to call it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, what have what thoughts has the political situation spawned for you?
Well, Dr. Welsing, which is she's the subject of my newest book. In December of 2015, she made a prophecy, and that's the only way she was speaking. It was one of her last speeches, and she said that Donald Trump was going to be elected president. And I wasn't in the audience, but I heard a lot of people say that people said, "Oh, come on, Dr. Welsing, you're wrong about this country's smart enough." Okay, she was right. That's the bottom line. She was right. I think that Donald Trump was elected because we Black folk underestimated how angry white people were during 8 years of the Obama administration.
Right. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Hold on one second. Okay, we're back. So you were saying, Dr. Winbush, that Dr. Welsing had made a prediction in 2015.
She late December of 15, just a couple of weeks before she made her transition, she predicted that Trump was going to win. And I think what it was is that we as Black people underestimated how much anger and hatred the people that we now call maggots, I call them maggots, M-A-G-A with a T-S on the end, how much anger they had for having to be under a Black president. They were angry about it. And so we gave them what we considered one of our best, and they gave us what all people considered one of their worst. In fact, you know, I would go on to say that Trump is the president that they thought Obama would be. You know, messing up all the time, scandal ridden. And so it's almost like they, you know, and I've said before that the system of white supremacy will sacrifice their own if they feel that there is Black advancement. So I think right now, healthcare, you know, especially in a pandemic, they've convinced that following of his that they don't need it or something. It's some kind of, quote, socialist experiment. But if you ask them, take away Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid, they said, no, I want that. So they don't even understand what socialism is. I think racially speaking, I think that Trump, I think he is a white supremacist.
Oh, no question.
We've had several white supremacist presidents, but like Ta-Nehisi Coates says, the difference with this guy is that, you know, Nixon and Bush and all of them, they would let open the box real easily and let the white supremacy kind of creep out a little bit. Trump is throwing it wide open.
Sure.
And not only is he throwing it wide open, he's adding to it. So I think that Black people should realize that this country, and I don't just say that rhetorically, is based on a system of white supremacy. And that we have to be counter-racist towards it in everything that we do.
Counter-racist?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, we have to say on a 24/7 and 365, what am I doing to put a dent in white supremacy? What am I doing to facilitate white supremacy? So this guy, Tim Scott, I think his name, the senator from South Carolina, he facilitates white supremacy.
Sure.
So does Clarence Thomas, you know, Stacey Dash and others. But what we've got to do is say, how am I facilitating it? And what am I doing to counter it? You know, do I speak up against white supremacy when I see it? Do I teach people? Am I deepening myself in an understanding of my own history as an African? And if we're not doing that, we're facilitating it.
Well, as a professor at an HBCU, do those institutions play a special role or have a special role to play in that countermanding of, or that countering of white supremacy?
You know, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the history of HBCUs, it's not that everybody at an HBCU is an Angela Davis or a Malcolm X. It's not like that.
No.
Faculty or students. What HBCUs do, if you look at, quote, Black leadership in the political world, the world of literature, entertainment, Black leadership comes from HBCUs. Samuel L. Jackson, Martin Luther King, Toni Morrison, Nikki Giovanni, W.B. Du Bois. I could go on and on with that. Marion Barry, Kamala Harris. You know, that's where leadership emerges. So I always, when parents ask me, if I'm talking to a K through 12, you know, student about to graduate from high school, they'll say, well, should I send my child to an HBCU or a TWI, or traditionally white institution? I always tell them, I give them the same answer. I say, if your child is potentially a Clarence Thomas or a Stacey Dash, they need to go to an HBCU. They just really, and they need to stay there for 4 years. Don't transfer them out. I said, if your child is going to be Malcolm or Rosa or Harriet, I said, you can go any place you want. You know, so but I know that students who go to, you know, 2 of my 3 children graduated from HBCUs. And I know as a witness, I mean, one is a lawyer and one is a dentist. And I know that it does a lot for them. It does a lot for them psychologically. It does a lot for them socially. It does a lot for them professionally. And they make friends forever. So I think HBCUs have a definite role in the development of Black people.
So how do you feel about the Democratic ticket and I'll put it in quotations, the way forward? Let's assume, you know, things work out for the Democratic ticket, November 5th, whatever that date.
November 3rd, yeah.
3rd. So what's the program, what's the responsibility going forward, January 1st, January 21st, whenever that inauguration is over, relative to Black folks as the Black polity, as it were?
Well, first of all, and I don't want to paint a doomsday scenario, but I think that we're headed for the most contested election in American history. I think that we're in for a threat that is almost at the level of the American Civil War. There's going to be violence on November 3rd, whoever wins. If Trump wins, those who oppose him are going to say he stole the election, you know, the post office stuff, the suppression of Black voting all over this country. If Biden-Harris wins, you're going to see Trump's minions, the MAGA hat people all over the country rising up. I really believe that fence that was put around the White House this summer is for that. Trump is not going to leave office. I mean, he said last night, he said, I need to get another 2 years, but if you really want to freak him out, tell him another 12 years. He is not going to leave office. So I think that's worst case scenario, but I think it's a very realistic scenario. I think if Biden wins, I think that Black people, instead of, you know, I always tell Africans in this country, y'all think that voting is the end of the political process. It should be the beginning of the political process.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, we vote and put our little sticker on, I voted, and then we say, whew, I don't have to do anything else to the midterm. That's when you should start working. And I'm going to show you my age by saying, I think that Africans in this country have to revisit Gary, Indiana in 1972, when we got together almost 50 years ago and said, we need a Black political independent party. We need a party that has our interests at stake. We put Joe Biden in office.
Sure.
South Carolina. You know, we put Kamala Harris up there because we knew that if he had taken a white woman, Black folk weren't going to show up. But there's going to be trouble. I've got a colleague of mine down at William and Mary in Virginia, and they are actually putting out scenarios now of what if Trump doesn't leave the White House? What are they going to do about it? And it's going to be bloodshed, and that's his word, not mine.
Maybe that's a good segue, notwithstanding the confrontational aspects, but assuming that somehow we get past that.
Yes.
To me, it suggests, I mean, I'm certainly concerned with the concept of a Black agenda, particularly, not only nationally, you know, but
right.
I'm also very, you know, I really think a lot of work needs to be done locally. I would think in Baltimore, and without question here in Philadelphia, you know, we've got, I believe, the poorest large city in the country here in Philly. And then after this COVID thing, who knows what it's going to look like, you know? But the idea of reparations, that, you know, we kind of met 15 or so years ago around that issue. And I was looking at, in fact, one of the books that you wrote, a couple of them deal with reparations. And one in the title is The Raging Debate on Reparations. And it seems like it's raging again. And I'm just wondering, you know, what your thoughts are on that now, in terms of reparations.
Well, reparations is something that when I started doing the research nearly 30 years ago, people were laughing at me. I was teaching at Vanderbilt. Somebody said, "You're going to do a book on reparations?" And this was way before the book was written. I said, "Yes." He said, "Ray, they're going to laugh you out of the academy." Well, nobody's laughing anymore. The only common political thread that you see throughout the African world now and throughout African history in the past is the issue of reparations. You know, one of my books is called Belinda's Petition, in which I talk about a woman in 1782 that filed a lawsuit in the state of Massachusetts for reparations. And she won her case, Belinda Royale. She had been captured in Africa and could not read or write. In fact, I've seen the actual petition in Worcester, Massachusetts, and she actually put an X at the bottom. So I wonder who, you know, wrote this for her, because it's a very articulate treatise, and it was none other than Phyllis Wheatley. And so you see the issue of reparations emerging with 40 Acres and a Mule. You see it, you know, continuing with Callie House in the late 1880s. Marcus Garvey, in terms of repatriation to Africa, Queen Mother Moore, the Nation of Islam. It's something that is throughout our history, because we essentially, for the past 500 years, African people all over the world, we've essentially been cleaning up white people's mess. The damage that they did to us, psychologically, health-wise, educationally, all types of way, culturally. And reparations means to repair. It means to repair the damage that you have caused to a people, a nation, done to a people. So I think that we have to press and continue to press the issue of reparations. With Biden, I think that we are making some incredible progress in NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. We have 145 signatories in the House. Pelosi has said when it gets to 150, we're going to take it to the floor. And I think it's very realistic that we will be receiving reparations within the next 5 to 10 years. If Biden wins.
Now, when you're talking about if it gets 150 signatures, it'll be taken to the floor. We're talking about what, HR 40?
HR 40. Mm-hmm. And we revised it. I was on the committee that revised it about 3 years ago. The one in 1989 just talked about a study of reparations.
Oh, okay.
But we've done that. You know, there's plenty of books and articles about reparations. The one now talks about remedy and what do you do about it.
And specifically, what does it suggest?
Well,
to look into to study remedies.
Yeah, we believe that and I'm going to look at this. We believe there's been 5 injuries that occurred during enslavement that are still here. And the first one is cultural, you know, just taking our culture away as an African people, regardless of where they're from. The second one is education, as I mentioned. The third one is health. The other one is the so-called criminal punishment system, mass incarceration, which is still there. And the third is the creation of the wealth poverty gap that exists. There's an estimate by Richard America. He's a Black economist at Georgetown University. He
I've
said,
met Richard, yeah.
oh, well, you know.
Years ago, yeah.
Right. And America says that if you took the wealth that Black people provided white people and transferred it to Black America, it would be somewhere between $8 to $10 trillion. That's how much wealth was taken from our community. You know, we paid taxes on schools that we couldn't go to. You know, we paid taxes for firemen and police officers and people like that we couldn't get a job, you know, on the force. So they owe us. As, you know, the December 12th movement says they owe us. And I think they know they owe us. It's really interesting. Whenever I'm giving a lecture on reparations, after the lecture, you know, Black folk will say, I can remember they ain't gonna never give us reparations, blah, blah, blah. White folks will come up to me afterward. This has happened dozens of times and say, how much do you think we really owe you? They know they owe us. They know it. And like Malcolm said, it's the end of the month and we're gonna come and collect. And it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I just want to close in a couple of minutes, ask about what do you think we need to do from a community or organizational standpoint, community standpoint, or an organizing standpoint in terms of, you know, to help galvanize folk regarding reparations?
Well, you know, Elijah Muhammad once said in his book, Message to the Black Man, and I used to kind of think it was an exaggeration, but I don't anymore. He said that 95% of Black people's problem is that they are not organized. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. Think about that. The most organized group that we have in the United States, and actually globally, is not the Democratic Party or anything else. It's the Nation of Islam. Now, I'm not a member of the nation, so I wanted your listeners to know that I'm not a member of the nation, but they have their own weekly newspaper, food that they grow, farmland. They help brothers and sisters when they get out of prison. I think that Black people, as I've always said, join an organization that deals with reparations. In COBRA, National Black United Front, if you're up in the New York area, December 12th movement, and if you're in an organization like the NAACP or some more conservative organization, press the leadership on the issue of reparations. So I think, you know, in Belinda's petition, in the back of the book, I actually have 10 things that you can do for the reparation struggle. Read about reparations. A lot of Black folk don't even know what reparations are. They use the term. Like, you know, for example, 40 acres and a mule, there was no mule. Mm-hmm. You know, that it was assumed that if you sold people land, that you gave them a mule. Mm-hmm. It's like if I said, Rob, I got a car I want to sell you. We said, well, what kind of car, Ray? And I said, it's a Jeep. Well, you would assume that it has an engine in it. So, you know, it's really 40 acres, and that land that was reserved for us by Sherman, and which he actually distributed 400,000 acres before Lincoln was assassinated, is now the area of the Sea Islands of Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Hilton Head was supposed to be an all-Black enclave. So read about the history, understand what reparations are, and then do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Look, man, on that note, I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Sure.
We're going to talk some more, and stay safe, man. Keep doing what you're doing. God
you
bless
too, brother.
All right, now.
Keep doing what you're doing. All right, man. See you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.